They watched the blue planet with the clinical detachment of gods. From the high observatory bridge of the Hilari warship Icarus Primus, a dozen spiral-horned tacticians stood around the projection table, its light carving symbols into their crystalline faces. Their Empress's decree echoed still. Extinguish them. They are beneath our notice. So began Operation Culling Sky. Terran resistance negligible, hissed Commander Vyrix, eyes reflecting Earth's curve. We strike with precision. Assimilation will be elegant. Grand Strategos Orlun tilted his multifaceted head. Do they know we've arrived? No, another replied. Their satellites see nothing. Cloaking nets hold. Gravity suppressors are primed. No planetary defenses detected. Vyrix smiled. Then let history mark this as the day the last unaligned species kneeled. But then the lights dimmed. All across the observation deck, consoles flickered. Gravity swayed, just enough for alien spines to stiffen. Somewhere deep in their systems something pulsed, not hacked, not overridden. Echoed. Then the main feed changed. It wasn't Hilari code. It was a video, grainy, human-made. A Terran bridge, small, cramped, smoky. A man stood at its center. Black uniform, blood at the collar. A single torn emblem on his chest, an eagle with burning wings. Captain Rhys Arden. He stared into the feed, as if seeing through time. His voice, when it came, was quiet, controlled, not begging. This message is for the Hilari Empress, Vyrix hissed. How did he breach? Quiet, Orlun growled. Rhys didn't blink. You came expecting surrender. You studied our wars, our fractures. You saw us as broken, primitive, divided. He leaned forward. You weren't wrong. A pause. But we made something from that chaos, something you missed in all your scans. He raised one hand. Behind him, in the frame, a red digital timer, counting down. 0. 09. You wanted Earth to kneel? 0006. You forgot to ask if we had already died standing. 03. From one Terran to your Empress. 1. Run. The feed cut, and the Icarus Primus screamed. Power surged across the hull, melting conduits. External sensors failed. Internal gravity flipped. And far beneath the ocean surface, Earth's crust cracked. A light older than satellites burned upward. From within the Pacific Trench, something awoke. A weapon? Node's ship Titanic. Silent. Blacker than space. Orlun stumbled back. What is that? The ship howled. Not with sound, but data. Code. Command. The entire Hilari fleet received one universal message. Protocol Odenfall activated. Rhys Arden was gone. But the humans had never planned to survive. They had planned to unmake the throne. As the shockwave of Earth's defiance ripples across the Hilari Empire, their Empress erupts in fury. Her command to annihilate humanity had been simple. Now, it threatens to shatter her throne. The emotional unraveling begins, not on the battlefield, but inside her own palace of certainty. The throne room was built to intimidate lesser species, colossal marble pillars laced with finds from 10 conquered worlds, a ceiling of starlight illusions showing real-time movements of her fleets. Beneath it all sat Empress Kael Jara, a being so ancient her skin had turned translucent with wisdom, pulsing faintly with bioelectric fury. She didn't move when the room trembled. A tremble. Here, in the Imperial core? Her advisors fell to their knees. A lieutenant stumbled forward with a crystalline datapad. Your Radiance. Transmission from Icarus Primus. Priority 1. She took it with skeletal fingers. The image flickered. Static. Smoke. Sparks. Then came the words. Protocol Odenfall activated. Kael Jara's second heart skipped. Terran? Confirmed, the lieutenant said, voice shaking. Captain Rhys Arden. He triggered something, not a bomb, something older. The Empress stared. Earth has no deep-time tech. They didn't, or we thought they didn't. Silence fell like ash. What did the projection show? Her voice was barely audible. A dreadnought-class vessel, seismic emergence. Cloaked, until ignition, it was under their ocean. A second advisor whispered, "Our predictive models never accounted." She rose. All conversation ceased. Her robes of living silk curled back as if in fear of her wrath. "Arden," she said slowly, like tasting poison. "That is the name of their mouthpiece?" Former Terran Navy. Presumed dead during the collapse wars. His body was never recovered. "Because he was building that," she hissed. Another tremor. This time it wasn't metaphorical. A subtle fluctuation in graviton bandwidth passed through the room. Even this far from Earth, the blast had reached them. The Empress turned toward the star map. Above, the Hilari fleet, her pride, now blinked with instability. One destroyer was gone. No distress. No call, just deleted, wiped from all layers of existence. "Quantum erasure," one scientist muttered, horrified. "They used singularity coding. That ship was rewritten." She felt it then, for the first time in 3 centuries. Fear. "What are the Terrans?" she whispered. The question wasn't rhetorical. No one answered, because no one knew. So she made the only decision she could. Burn Earth. An order passed to her generals. "Not just Earth," she added. "I want symbolic extinction. I want their language erased, their bones turned to powder, their sun fractured." A flicker of guilt passed across one officer's face. The Empress noticed. "You hesitate?" The officer bowed deeply. "We believe Arden knew we would respond this way." She narrowed her glowing eyes. "Speak plainly. He wanted you to come." Outside the palace, hundreds of warp gates began to hum. They would go. They would make Earth howl. But deep beneath the seas of Earth, in the still warm metal of the buried dreadnought, a second countdown began, and Rhys Arden's voice, no longer alive, played one last encrypted line echoing through Hilari deep space arrays. "Your throne was built on silence. Let's see how you scream." As the Hilari fleet descends on Earth, they encounter a world transformed. But it's not defenses or weapons that unsettle them first. It's absence. Earth appears deserted. Yet every shadow, every silence feels intentional. Captain Rhys Arden's legacy continues, not through firepower but psychological warfare. They broke through the clouds expecting resistance. Instead, they found ghosts. The Hilari fleet, 37 ships, each capable of sterilizing moons, hovered over a planet that offered no sound, no signal, no resistance. General Corvan stood on the command platform of the Orcs Fang, the second most feared vessel in the Empire. His claws clicked against the holoscreen, scrolling for activity. "There is nothing," his sensor officer rasped. "No heat blooms, no radio traffic. Civilian centers are dark. Military structures, abandoned." "Where's their resistance?" Corvan growled. "They knew we were coming," said a junior tactician. "This isn't surrender, it's deliberate." He zoomed in on the cities, megastructures hollowed out, streets empty, traffic lights blinking to no one, human graffiti scrawled in dozens of languages, some newly developed. One phrase repeated again and again. "This was never our final form." Corvan's fur bristled. "Surface teams. Now." 12 dropships launched. Within minutes, the soldiers landed across Earth's major capitals: New York, Nairobi, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and all of them reported the same thing. No one there. Not even bodies. Just artifacts. A child's shoe on a swing, swaying in wind that did not exist. Steam still rising from coffee cups on untouched tables. One trooper spoke through trembling breath. "It's like they evaporated." Then they found the first signal. In Geneva, inside the hollowed remains of a UN bunker, a team discovered a monolith, obsidian black, smooth, humming at a frequency just beyond Hillary hearing range. One soldier touched it and collapsed. No injuries. No pain. Just eyes wide open, silently weeping. When he finally spoke, he whispered a single word. Witness. That's when the sky changed. Above the Pacific, a rupture opened. Not a wormhole. A wound. From it emerged something vast. Not a ship. Not a creature. A cathedral made of orbit. A construct forged in Terran design but incomprehensible in scale. Spinning. Alive. Screaming data. Signal intercept, cried the comms officer. It's addressing our fleet. The message was simple. We told you not to come. Then came the pulse. A gravitational ripple burst outward, not violent, surgical. Every Hillary vessel spun momentarily into diagnostic lockdown. Corvan watched helplessly as half his weapons refused to respond. Then came the second message. Visual. This time, Rhys Arden again. But wrong. Older. Deeper. Half machine. Not a man anymore, a memory-turned weapon. I'm not your enemy, he said. Behind him, figures moved. Unseen, unreadable, not quite human. But I made a promise. His eyes locked with the camera. You attack Earth. Earth doesn't fight back. Earth evolves. Corvan roared, slamming his fist into the panel. Fire on the construct, now! The order went through. But the ship did not respond. The weapons had already been turned inward. One by one, systems shorted. Missiles launched at random. Lasers carved into their own hulls. No. No, 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 the general shouted, and then his screen filled with one final word. Reckoning. The cathedral above Earth opened, not to attack, to collect. The war hadn't started. The test had. Aboard a crippled Hillary vessel, a young xenolinguist uncovers the truth. Earth didn't evolve alone. Terran captains like Rhys Arden laid a seed, code across the stars, messages, traps, and philosophies embedded in forgotten tech. As the alien fleet collapses, one outsider begins to question if the humans wanted survival or transcendence. Dr. Selvari was not a warrior. What is that? The Empress asked. The cathedral construct, Terran whispered. It's singing. Across the Empire, signals echoed. Each Hillary vessel still in range of Earth received synchronized pulses, not attacks, but reminders. Footage. Audio. Memories. Moments of Terran failure turned to victory. Moments of Hillary triumph turned to rot. A captain hurling himself into a black hole with a Hillary cruiser in tow. A colony that poisoned its own soil to deny conquest. A mother, shielding her children from orbital fire, transmitting a smile as her final message. The Empress felt it creeping in, a sick, slow erosion of control, not through fire, but emotion. She slammed her staff onto the dais. We are Hillary. We do, not bend to grief. Uvra didn't look away. No, but the Terrans made grief into gravity, and now we all orbit it. The chamber lights flickered. Kailjara turned toward the central console. The star map. Her map. Now pulsed with red lines. Not attacks. Pathways. Dozens of systems now pinged with Terran code signatures. Hidden caches. Silent orbiters. Generational AIs awakening. They hadn't just prepared Earth. They had sown the galaxy. And like a harvest, it was rising. Your radiance, Tyron said quietly. We must consider withdrawal. Retreat, she said, as if tasting poison. Preservation, he corrected. The Empress's second heart thundered. She looked at the map again, and for the first time in centuries, she felt small. Then a final signal arrived from Arden's dreadnought. Not to all. Just to her. One sentence. In Terran script, your reign ends not in fire, but in echo. She didn't understand it fully, but in her bones, she knew what it meant. The Terrans didn't come to destroy her empire. they came to make, others question it, and now, even her most loyal could hear the echo. As the Terran signal spreads like wildfire across the galaxy, resistance begins not with weapons, but whispers. On a Halari mining colony, a young technician discovers a hidden Terran cache and is faced with a choice. Destroy it as ordered, or open it and see what the Empire fears. What she finds inside changes her forever. The Halari colony of Dravex 4 was as far from Earth as one could get without falling into dark space. It was a resource world, dull industrial quiet. No politics, no war. Which is why when the signal came, no one believed it at first. An alert, strange in tone. No emergency code, no tactical symbols, just coordinates, and a symbol, a Terran flame. Keta was the only one who didn't dismiss it. She was low-tier maintenance, scrubber systems, airflow stabilizers, the kind of labor that kept the others breathing without ever being thanked. But she was curious, and curiosity was a dangerous defect in Halari society. When she clocked out of her shift, she didn't go to rest. She followed the coordinates. They led her beneath the foundry levels into the old tunnels sealed since before her birth. The air grew dry, then hot, then still. She turned on her wrist light. At the end of the corridor stood a sphere. Smooth, matted, Terran, and it was waiting. Keta approached, heartbeat pulsing in her throat. Her wrist pad buzzed with alerts. All meaningless now. The sphere pulsed once as she neared, then opened. Inside was not a weapon, not data, but a chair. And in front of the chair, a device, playing a hologram on loop. A child human. Reading a book. Behind her, a city crumbled in silence. But she kept reading. The words were in Halari. Keta sat down. The projection changed. Suddenly she was surrounded by light. Cities. Not Terran or Halari, but new, blended, peaceful. Fiction. And then the child spoke. The only war that matters is the one against forgetting. Keta blinked. The projection shifted again. Images, footage, memories. Terran soldiers laughing as they shared meals with non-human allies. A Halari outcast embraced by a dying Terran woman in a medic bunker. Notes, letters, journals from soldiers on. Both sides talking not about glory, but doubt, kindness, regret. Then it changed again. This time the message was clear. This is not a weapon. This is a seed. Grow it or burn it. Your hands decide. Keta trembled. She rose, turned, ran. But something had shifted in her. A weight lifted. A truth let in. The next day, she returned, with 5 others, then 20. By the end of the week, over 100 Halari had stood in that chamber. Each one walked out changed, not because of power, but because of choice. Back on the surface, the overseer finally heard of the anomaly. He sent drones, troops. But when they arrived, the sphere was gone. In its place, a child's drawing burned into the metal wall, a Terran flame wrapped in Halari wings, and beneath it the phrase, "This is how empires end, not with conquest, but with context." Across the galaxy, it kept happening. Not battles, moments. Halari child finding a music chip embedded in a collapsed Earth vessel and recognizing the melody as her own lullaby. Halari general sitting in silence as his terminal kept replaying footage of Arden's final words. Entire mining fleets returning home without orders. Soldiers refusing to fire on unarmed planets because the Terrans hadn't just left behind weapons. They'd left behind questions. And no empire survives questions for long. Back on Earth, the dreadnought stirred again. It hadn't moved in days. Now it reconfigured, not to launch, to transmit. A new wave, a larger message. Across every known system, every species, every satellite still listening. A single voice, calm, steady, unmistakably human. If you found this, you survived. Now decide. Do you want to conquer or continue? And as the voice faded, the cathedral above Earth aligned. It sent one last pulse, not a map, a blueprint for a ship, not Hilari, not Terran, something new. And across thousands of worlds, in silence, beings stared at it and asked the question their rulers never wanted spoken aloud. What if we are not the pinnacle? What if we are only the beginning? They came for Earth in force once more, not the Hilari, the galaxy. 37 species, hundreds of fleets, all with the same question: how? How? Did the Terrans do it? They had no empire, no throne, no superiority, and yet they shattered certainty with whispers and memory. Above the Earth, the cathedral construct welcomed none of the arriving ships. It simply existed, orbiting like a silent judge, watching them all, never responding. Until the Hilari flagship Vraxis. Sol approached. It bore no weapons, only the Empress. She came alone, no guard, no honor, just a worn figure in cracked regalia. And yet, every fleet moved aside as her ship passed. Even the conquerors knew this was her ending. She docked at the cathedral's edge and was welcomed inside. No doors opened. The construct reshaped to meet her, as if recognizing her thoughts, her regrets, her long, slow awakening. She stepped into a chamber lit by stars, but not her stars, Terran ones, memories encoded in light, moments of love, sacrifice, curiosity, death. And then, Rhys Arden stood before her, not alive, not AI, something between. She didn't speak, he did. You wanted surrender. She nodded. You received evolution. She looked up, eyes hollow. Why me? Because your fall will echo. She stepped forward, robes brushing the light. You killed thousands. We stopped. A million-year cycle. She stared into his eyes. There's nothing left of Earth. He smiled. That's the point. She waited. Explain. Rhys turned, and behind him the stars rearranged. She saw not a map, but a pattern. The rise and fall of every empire, including hers, always the same. Find, conquer, rule, collapse, over and over. We chose to end our arc, he said, so the galaxy could begin a new one. She whispered. You made yourselves extinct. No, he replied. We made ourselves myth. The cathedral began to dim. Around her, echoes of Terran voices, children, teachers, warriors, thinkers, whispered fragments of the new blueprint. Unity not through rule but memory. Power not through fear, but invitation. And then, silence. The chamber faded. She stood alone. On her ship, back in orbit. The cathedral was gone. No warp trail, no explosion, just absence. But on her console, one new signal. From Earth, a frequency never used before. She opened it. Text, simple. One line. You were never the enemy. You were the next us. 3 years later. The Hilari Empire dissolved without war. No uprisings, no bloodshed, just awakening. Its planets declared independence. Its armies laid down arms. Its children stopped being taught only conquest and began learning curiosity. Across the galaxy, other species followed. Some built ships using the Terran design. Others formed archives of pre-imperial history. A few formed councils not for war but questions, and one, just one, returned to Earth. Behind him figures moved, unseen, unreadable, not quite human. But I made a promise. His eyes locked with the camera. You attack Earth. Earth doesn't fight back. Earth evolves. Korvan roared, slamming his fist into the panel. Fire on the construct, now! The order went through, but the ship did not respond. The weapons had already been turned inward. One by one, systems shorted. Missiles launched at random, lasers carved into their own hulls. No, 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 no. The general shouted, and then his screen filled with one final word. Reckoning. The cathedral above Earth opened, not to attack, to collect. The war hadn't started. The test had, aboard a crippled Hilari vessel. A young xenolinguist uncovers the truth. Earth didn't evolve alone. Terran captains like Rhys Arden laid a seed, code across the stars, messages, traps, and philosophies embedded in forgotten tech. As the alien fleet collapses, one outsider begins to question if the humans wanted survival or transcendence. Dr. Selvari was not a warrior. She had never held a plasma rifle, never commanded a drop team, never stood in a throne room. She was a translator, a xenolinguist, posted to the Orcs Fang as part of the post-victory integration. Protocols. She had assumed she'd be translating surrender documents. Instead, she sat in a darkened lab, hunched over human symbols that should not have existed on this scale. The ship had gone silent, not dead, just whispering. Systems flickered with Terran code. The gravitational field hummed in patterns mimicking human speech cadences. Even the AI core had locked her out, repeating one phrase in ancient Earth Latin, Fiat Lux, "Let there be light." "Why Latin?" she whispered. A voice spoke behind her. "Because that's where they began rewriting the stars." It was Technician Jur, eyes ringed with sleepless purple. "Look at this," he said, tossing a data pad. To her, it showed the cathedral's burst pattern. At first glance, it was just a data storm, but analyzed spectrally, it revealed structure, like a song or a code. Selvari gasped. "It's not a weapon, it's a transmission lattice." Who? "To anyone still listening," she said. That's when the console lit up. A string of coordinates. Too far, beyond mapped galactic edges, then another set, this time, inside Hilari territory. "These are installations," she breathed. "Ancient human listening posts, camouflaged, waiting." "For what?" Shur asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she played back the Arden message frame by frame. Midway through, she froze it. There, barely visible behind him, were symbols on a bulkhead. Spirals, bars, lines. She'd seen them before, not in human archives, in Hilari prehistory. "Impossible," she whispered. "They were influenced?" Jur frowned. "Are you saying Earth seeded our evolution?" "No, I'm saying they interacted, we just forgot." The implications made her nauseous. A species they labeled primitive had not just survived. They had remembered while the Hilari had grown arrogant and blind. Another tremor shook the ship. Selvari turned to the main feed. The cathedral construct above Earth now extended filaments of light, touching atmosphere, oceans, tectonic plates. It wasn't an attack. It was communication. Every Hilari ship received an encoded burst. Some panicked and fired. Those vanished. No debris. Just gone. Others remained still, confused. And into that stillness, another signal arrived. Not from Earth. From beneath it. From the dreadnought Arden had activated. A single word. Ascend. Jur turned pale. "They're not threatening us." "No," Selvari said. "They're inviting us." To what? She didn't know, but something in her core, some primal, aching part, whispered that the Terrans were not offering peace. They were offering evolution, and the cost would be everything the Hilari called identity. In the silence, Selvari made a decision. She synced the ship's core with the Terran code stream, against protocol, against every fiber of Empire-bred loyalty, and the ship responded. Lights turned blue. Gravity normalized. Data flowed like a second skin across every surface. And then came the voice. Not Arden. Someone else. Younger, female, Terran, who seeks understanding. Selvari swallowed. "I do." There was a pause, then laughter. Gentle, not mocking, then shed the throne. "What?" "To understand us," the voice said, "you must first leave behind everything built to rule others." She looked at Jur. He nodded, barely breathing. "Do it," he whispered. Selvari touched the interface. The ship trembled and reconfigured. Walls shifted, panels reshaped, and in the center of the lab a small orb materialized. Inside it, stars, galaxies, and, floating among them, an image of Earth not as it was now, but as it would be. A cradle turned forge, a homeworld turned myth. Jur stared, awestruck. "They're not at war with us." "No," Selvari said. "They're at war with what we used to be." Far below, Earth remained still, watching, waiting. But the true invasion hadn't been of territory. It had been of thought, and it was already inside. Captain Rhys Arden's final legacy is uncovered deep beneath Earth's crust, not by humans, but by a Halari infiltrator searching for vengeance. What they find instead is a psychological trap wrapped in memory and myth. The Terran dreadnought doesn't just house a weapon, it is the weapon, and it's learning. Zirith of House Kral had never failed a mission. As one of the Halari Empress's black talons, he was bred for sabotage and recovery. This time his task was sacred: infiltrate Earth's surface, reach the origin of Protocol Odenfall, and extract the Terran dreadnought's command core. He landed under the Pacific cloaked in null grav. His descent capsule burrowed through, tectonic resistance guided by pulses only the Halari deepseers could decipher. It took hours. The deeper he went, the warmer it got, not just from pressure, but from something alive, pulsing, watching. Then it appeared. The dreadnought wasn't buried. It was sleeping, miles long, covered in obsidian armor and ancient hull markings, some Halari, some unknown, and deep at its core, a glow, red, slow, like breath. He approached. "Power minimal," he whispered. "Internal system stable. No defense grid active." Then, without warning, the hull opened. Not violently, welcoming. He stepped inside. Immediately, the air shifted, sound faded, gravity wavered, words formed along the corridor walls, not printed, but remembered. Memories etched in metal. To fight monsters, we became more. To preserve peace, we embraced entropy. To protect Earth, we abandoned it. He moved deeper. The ship felt organic, more cathedral than cruiser. At the heart of the chamber stood a command throne, fused with bones and circuitry. A Terran figure sat upon it, Rhys Arden, mummified, still in uniform, still wearing the torn eagle crest. Zirith raised his scanner, no signs of life, until Arden's eyes opened. Not flesh, hologram. The entire throne room flickered. Then Rhys spoke. "Knew they'd send someone like you." Zirith's claws tensed. "You're dead." "Yes," the hologram said. "That was the easy part. You detonated your own fleet, doomed your species." Rhys smiled. "Doomed? We just stopped playing." The lights shifted. Zirith's vision blurred, and suddenly, he wasn't in the chamber anymore. He stood in a trench. Mud, blood, gunfire overhead. Terran soldiers screamed. Halari warforms advanced. It wasn't a vision, it was a recorded memory, fed directly into his mind. He tore free, snarled. "You think fear will stop me?" "No," Rhys said, "but memory will slow you down." The ship began to hum. Zirith's body locked. Neural paralysis. Data injection. Arden's voice whispered around him. "We didn't bury this ship. We grew it. Every loss, every war, every betrayal, we fed into its AI, our pain, our rage, our love." Zirith gasped as millions of Terran voices poured into him, children's laughter. A mother's scream, soldiers praying, scientists whispering equations to no one. "You turned your pain into a virus." Rhys nodded. "No," he said. Into a mirror. The chamber walls displayed images of Halari conquest, cities burning, alien, slaves kneeling, and one by one, they began to rewrite themselves. A child stood up. A city rebuilt. The slaves threw down chains. "We fed your empire its own reflection," Arden said. "Why?" Zareth choked. "Because you never asked why. We stopped fighting," Rhys said. "We didn't lose our wars, we paused them to evolve to prepare for you." The dreadnought pulsed. Outside, the cathedral construct began moving again, not orbiting but descending, joining, becoming. Zareth collapsed, vision fracturing. "Your empire feeds on fear," Rhys said, walking toward him. "Not quite real, not quite ghost. So we gave it a truth worse than fear." He knelt. Doubt. The last thing Zareth saw was the Terran flag, old, faded, stitched into Arden's chest. Then the dreadnought whispered into his mind, a phrase in Hellery tongue. "Unmake the throne," and Zareth screamed, not in pain, in clarity. Empress. Kyal'Jara receives a direct feed from the shattered Halari fleet, and watches as one of her own, Zareth, declares allegiance not to her, but to the Terran legacy. His betrayal cracks the illusion of Halari supremacy. Now within the Empire's inner sanctum, doubt becomes contagious. The throne room no longer hummed with confidence. Only silence. Across her dais, Empress Kyal'Jara watched the projection of Zareth's final transmission. His scream, not of agony, but of truth. Around her, warlords, nobles, and scientists stared at the feed like a slow death sentence. Some whispered. Others simply stared. The Empress stood motionless, but her inner tendrils thrashed beneath her robes. "Cut that feed," she ordered. No one moved, so she screamed. "Cut it!" A tremble rippled through the floor. The projection blinked out. But the silence remained. Her vizier, Lord Tyrone, broke first. "Your radiance, what Zareth saw, is corruption," she hissed. "Terran mind venom. He was weak,